Hey everyone, welcome back to the channel. Today I'm just going to go over why I personally like to collect the PSA 9s rather than the PSA 10s for a lot of set cards, for example. So in front of me you see a bunch of different examples of PSA 9 cards ranging from the WotC era all the way sort of to the modern era. And so for this video, I'm just going to express my own opinions. So, take it with a grain of salt. And yeah, let's get started. So I think how I'm going to do this video is I'll probably just show off some of my collection. I'll show you guys the 9 price and the 10 price. And I guess that'll tie into sort of the price differential between the 9s and the 10s. So, for myself, I mainly like to collect the mid-era cards. So these would be the LV.X or the EX cards. So how about maybe I'll show you guys these up close too. So, why do I like to collect the 9s? So generally the 9s are, I think they're really good value for your buck. They're definitely, depending on like which card. So for example, these more modern cards, the 9s and the 10 differential isn't as great. So you'll see on the screen by what I mean here. So, there's not too much difference between the 9 and the 10. But however, for a lot of the cards that I personally love to collect, such as the LV.X ones, this one, and yeah, sort of these ones. So these cards, why I like to go for the 9s on these ones is that they're usually already in pretty good condition. Like right out of the pack, they're basically a 9 quality, just in general for these sort of mid-era cards. So LV.X, EX cards. What I find is that, these cards are just so hard to grade already. Like a pack fresh card is probably going to get you a 9. And, for the most part, PSA 9s, you're not even seeing much flaw. Like for this one is more noticeable. You see a white dot. But usually, that doesn't really affect the collectability, I think, of these cards. I think they still look great. There's no visible damage. It's just these very minute differences that you only see when you inspect it closely. And so this also ties into, can you really even tell the difference between a PSA 9 and a 10? I think it's very hard. Personally, I think a lot of 10s are actually 9s. But I do think some of the 9s could be a 10 if you like resubmit it again. I think that's pretty likely. Just as likely as that if you crack a 10 out of its case and then resubmit it to PSA, I think a lot of the times it will come back as a 9. Yeah, so I'm not sure, how reproducible the PSA 10 is. A lot of times I think the 10s are sort of luck based. But, that's just my opinion. Some cards that are easy to grade, I can give you guys an example. Like this Hidden Fates Charizard. So this is, I pulled this myself, graded it myself. So Hidden Fates is known to be, pretty easy set to grade. So, the 10 price and the 9 price isn't too different. So, for these cards, I don't mind picking up the 10 or just buying it raw and then grading it. I actually prefer going that route since they're so easy to grade. But, for some of these vintage cards that I'm showing here, like I tried to actually, buy these copies raw off the secondary market like eBay and then grade it myself. But I've been having so much trouble, just buying it and then seeing like hollow scratches, sort of these print lines in some of them. And I think these foil, especially these silver foils, they really peel easily. And so, I often don't get the 9 when I grade it myself. I get the like an 8 or sometimes even a 7, since, these are extremely hard to grade cards. And, I can buy some of these for, like $100. But then I would pay like 10 times the price, for example, if I did want the PSA 10 version of them. And just, another point I wanted to make is that by buying the 9, you're actually able to buy a lot more different cards. you're able to diversify, your collection, get more sort of expand your collection, but then it won't really break the bank. You have more, more risk diversification essentially. So in case one card goes down, your other cards might still be up. These cards are honestly in great condition. Like I have trouble finding flaws with them, especially just like these flaws. Maybe this little bit of white edge here. Like you see the same sort of white edge on English PSA 10 cards, which makes no sense because I feel like if a PSA 10 is truly a flawless card, then like why are there still defects on the card that allow it to be a 10? I think another point that I want to make is that especially for these harder to grade cards, I think it's definitely worth just getting the 9. I'd rather have a large collection than sort of a few smaller collection. And I mean, like, as a kid, when I was pulling these cards, I didn't really care about the condition. I cared more so that I actually owned the card. So I'm going with a similar approach here, that I rather just have, very high quality, good condition cards, but that don't break the bank. Repetitive on this, but for me, I just really enjoyed the 9s. They still look great in the current condition. So some cards, like for example, let's take this XY Evolutions Charizard. So this card has been pretty hard to grade in a PSA 10. There's a lot less PSA 10s than there are PSA 9s. I think this reflects it in the price chart. But then again, like I think these like small differences do not warrant a sort of 10-fold plus increase in price. I guess that's maybe just me personally, but I think, I prefer going with a value play, and just having more of these cards. The last point I had to make was just at the end of the day, you just want to buy the actual card. To be honest, I think a lot of 9s look really clean. It looked like they can get 10s, but since they're a 9, the price point is a lot more drastically a lot more affordable. So like, what if one day the PSA 10 doesn't get its premium anymore, or PSA, for example, isn't regarded as one of the top grading companies? So I think the nice thing about 9 is you're getting a solid card and at a great price. So if, for example, one day the grading company, or although it's unlikely, but maybe another type of grading company sort of becomes the more mainstream and popular and well-established company that you want to transition your collection to, at the end of the day, at least that you have a really good condition, solid card that you didn't break the bank to purchase. So that's one of the reasons why I really like the 9s, is that you can always crack it out and it's a minty card that you can always resubmit it somewhere else. Whereas if you locked in with the PSA 10 and you try to sort of cross grade it or grade it somewhere else, I think that a lot of the times it won't achieve the same grade, just because I think PSA 10, again, it's subjective, right? At the end of the day, they're not using a robotic grading procedure that assesses the cards objectively, based on like imaging, for example. So PSA essentially just hires workers that look at the corners, the surface, the edges, as well as the centering, I think, and then sort of provide you a grade. And so this is obviously subjective to on a person-to-person basis. So it's unclear how reproducible their assessments are. A lot of people in the hobby state, what if they were just in a bad mood? They could, ding you for it because, they weren't feeling super generous. Or on the other hand, what if you get a grader that is really in a good mood and, feels like awarding you 10s more? So I think because of that, I think the 9 is a lot more consistent. At the end of the day, I just want a card that is in good condition. So, that's the main reason why I am choosing to buy the 9s over the 10s. And I think, again, this is especially, I would choose this over for like WotC cards or Level.X, EX cards, for example. These cards that are really hard to grade, and just out of the pack, usually they're already a PSA 9 or sometimes even worse. So if I can secure a 9, I think that's a great deal without, and the 9s aren't usually terribly expensive. So that's sort of my strategy. I definitely think I don't like how the 10s, PSA 10 specifically, get the premium. I think that doesn't make too much sense. How the other grading company 10s don't get that high of a premium, maybe other than the BGS black labels. So I do think, what if one day PSA 10s aren't sort of a thing anymore? What if we switch to, CGC as the best grading company, and everybody's trying to transition their PSA collection into CGC collections. So I think at that point, at least with the 9s, that you're sort of fairly well off. You're likely going to get at least a 9 with CGC, just generally. Whereas, if you get the PSA 10, you might not get the 10 again. And that doesn't really sit well for me, especially when I'm spending thousands of dollars just to get a simple label. So, in conclusion, I much rather just buy a great quality card. Buy a card that's not, you inspect it visually, you make sure that, because this literally looks like a 10 quality card, for example, this one. But, it got assigned the 9, so maybe it's like near 10. So I'm not too sure, but, I think these are really valuable. Just because it says a 9 doesn't, at the end of the day, I want the card. I'm not looking for just the number. So, thanks for listening to my little rant here. I hope it was helpful. Please let me know if you guys have any questions or what you guys think of this, collecting 9s versus 10s. I know it's been a hot debate in the topic for a while now, so I thought I'd give my 2 cents. And if you guys enjoyed the video, please leave a like or subscribe. Please use my eBay affiliate link in the description below. It helps out the channel at no cost to you. And see you guys in another video. Peace.